Welcome back to Beers in the Attic. As always, I'm your host, Dominic Smith, and I'm here with my co-host, Broc Arnies. And today,
Hello.
We change it up a little bit. On tap tonight, it's not the same. We actually have Trevana from Virgin Brewery up in Carlsbad. It's not too bad. So
No, it's good. We've had this before on the podcast.
So a little quick cheers to that. And
cheers, bud.
Amy, cheers to you.
Cheers to your invisible...
Okay. Yes, Amy wins. Amy's the first
person. I love it. What do you... Okay, so Amy, can you explain to us really quick? What are you drinking?
Well, this is, I don't even know, it's some kind of off-brand of Prosecco that I'm having, but I really think you should change your strategy and maybe ship some of that beer
you know what?
Our way as guests.
Beer book.
That's what we tried to do.
Not my book, your book.
Right.
Okay.
And we even looked at Drizzly to maybe send you something, but we got a little nervous. So next time, because we're going to do this again now. We're going to
with Amy?
Yes.
I'm down.
We have to do it all over.
First person to drink, you're getting something.
Yeah. This is how you this is how you win on Beers in the Attic.
How you win?
Yes.
Okay. I like it.
Okay. So tonight we're excited. We have Amy Fast. And if you are on Twitter, I guarantee you've seen her, especially if you're in education.
Mm-hmm.
I was so happy when we wrote over to Amy. Amy, would you be interested in the conversation? She said, of course she would. She's an author. She's an administrator. She is a well-written Twitter, what do you call that? Twitter writer?
A Twitterer?
Twitter poster? Because Broc can't do it, so that's why he's...
No, I can't. I'm somehow became the PR person for our Beers in the Attic podcast, and I'm not very good.
So with that, I mean, we just did a little intro for Amy, Amy Fast. And, she has her doctorate. She's coming in. She's going to make change in education. But as we always do, Amy, we love to hear and share to our audience, just who are you?
Sure. So I think you gave the highlights. I'm a high school principal, McMinnville High School in McMinnville, Oregon. We have about 2,200 students. We're a public school. This is my second year as principal. So first year I got to do the whole global pandemic distance learning gig. We're still in remote learning 100% right now. Prior to being a high school principal, I was an assistant principal for 4 years, I think, at the same high school. And prior to that, I was an instructional coach and actually an elementary school teacher. So I taught fourth and fifth grades for about 10 years and did instructional coaching for 5. So,
all right. Well, there we go. I like that. And as we get to know you and as we follow you on Twitter, one of the things that I recently saw was that conversation around the pandemic and what you're doing as a leader. So I was wondering if you could kind of share, like, what's been that experience? What are you doing as a leader to make sure the pandemic doesn't take over your staff?
Sure. I mean, you guys know it's a really tricky question because I would say in a typical school year, I have a lot more autonomy to make decisions for my staff and students, for our staff and students, than I do in this current environment. So in addition to the governor's metrics and orders and the Oregon Department of Education's guidelines and OSA's athletic rules, in addition to those things, we have other constraints that we have to operate within that are unique to this particular year. And that's super hard for me because I like to just figure out what's the best decision for our school community and run with it versus having to always operate as this whole K-12 system and even greater than that, a state system. So for me, the number one priority is obviously the well-being of our staff and students, and being in constant communication with them is huge. Capturing their voices is obviously huge as well. And then I think the other piece is what's missing in society and in schools right now is a sense of hope. One, because everyone is obviously struggling, but also because there's no determined end in sight. There's no on this day, those, 2,000 person assemblies you experienced are going to happen again. Homecoming is going to happen again, all those pieces. And so it's also balancing the sense of like being the person who's like the chief storyteller for your community, like telling these stories of hope without coming across as an ass. Like people also want to be validated that this is super hard. So that's a tricky balance. And it takes a special kind of leader right now, I think, to straddle that need to both tell stories of hope and be like, yeah, this really sucks. Students and your staff.
I think, and just listening to you, how do you go through and like develop, that narrative of, kind of being a storyteller, but in a positive way to create hope, to make sure that your staff buys in and understands what you're saying. And it's like factual based, but also like, you're trying to get people like, you kind of got to give a little bit of a hoorah speech, to get people to be like excited because it's hard to teach right now, that's one of the things that we talked about. So how do you do that?
I don't know. That's why I said communication is so important. Like, I think regularly telling, like I said, communicating, but also telling my own story. So I send regular correspondence to weekly to our staff, and then also regular correspondence to our parents and our students. And like, for instance, when the election was happening, we had a really divided community, just like we had a divided country in that moment. And how do you lead in a way that's not fearful? Because in this era, when the Google is at your fingertips, silence says something. Like you don't get to just opt out of the conversation anymore. So to be silent as a community leader, I think, is irresponsible. And so I always, when there's major things happening, whether it's a insurgents on the Capitol or an election or whatever, I say something about those things. And that's tricky because I also can't be this polarizing figure. So I'm not like speaking about my own political beliefs, but I told, for instance, I sent out a email to all the students and parents and staff in our school community and talked about my experience adopting my son through foster care and how his bio family in the courtroom, when we were going through that whole process, was super, it was really a awkward experience because they kind of hated us. You know what I mean? And like, they were like shooting daggers at us in the courtroom. And then we ended up being able to sit across a table from them and just have a real and vulnerable conversation, at which point we began to trust each other a little bit more. And like now, when we're not in a pandemic, we're like in the kitchen together, cooking dinner every couple of weeks. And we're partners, and the whole gist was like, we need like not making the other person an other, and trying to really, see each other's humanity and sit across the table from someone, even if we feel like we disagree with them. But I think for me, it's about letting the community see who I am as a human. And that's super important right now. Not just a school leader who's developing like hybrid models and rolling out CDL plans, but also here's who I am as a parent, here's who I am as a community member, here's who I am as a school leader, and here's what I'm struggling with too. So it just kind of brings us closer together.
I really enjoy that because I feel like it really humanizes yourself. You go from like you're like almost like in a linear fashion. Here's that, as you just said, parent, community member, and then also as an educator. And I think two of the biggest takeaways from that conversation was like, this is one of the things that I do to be trustworthy, and here's one of the things that I do to be transparent. And I think right now, especially with this distance learning and COVID era, being transparent, whether you're a leader or a teacher or a parent, is extremely important because you get everybody on the same page. We're not in classes every day in our normal fashion. We're not, being able to see each other as much as we want. And so our new mode of communication is like text and calling and emails. And I think, those two big takeaways as you're saying, to kind of develop that credibility is developing trust, which is extremely important, and then also being as transparent as possible. So I think you learn to take in new stakeholders in that like transparency piece, because you're trying to bring in new people. You're trying to be like, this is stuff that I maybe normally wouldn't let everybody know, but because of the pandemic and the world that we're in right now in the form of education, I have to be transparent. Everybody needs to know what's going on.
And I think on that, I think it's very, honorable what you're kind of doing. Creating vulnerability within schools and saying, hey, I'm a leader and I'm allowed to do that, right? Because as I work with leaders across the country, I don't think that's one of the things I start with is saying, hey, be vulnerable with your staff, because some of those leaders might be like, no, I'm not going to do that right now.
I need to be strong right now.
I need to be strong.
Yeah.
So I guess when I hear that, Amy, it makes me excited. It makes me happy, because that's where we should be. But how did you get to that point? How did you say, this is where I'm going to go and this is why I'm doing it? What made you, or what created that in you as a leader to say vulnerability is huge, being honest and transparent is huge, and having that connection with community is huge? Where was that in your development as a leader to say, that's what I'm going to do?
That's a good question. I mean, I think your greatest strength is often your greatest weakness, right?
I stumped Amy.
I'm honest.
I don't think I did.
To a fault sometimes.
She's probably
it might be like my outspokenness might be.
I heard a voice.
We got you. We got you now.
Back.
Sorry, how's the storm out there?
Yeah, storm's nice, huh?
It's getting stronger.
We're back.
I heard what you said. Do you want me to answer that?
We got you now.
Can you hear me now?
Good.
Okay. I was just saying, like, I think your greatest strength is often your greatest weakness. And I would say a personality trait of mine is just that I'm honest to a fault anyway. Yeah. I'm an open book. Like, this is who I am. And probably was a concern, honestly, that my superintendent's hiring me. Cause I say, I say what's on my.
Yeah.
But I also think it's it's also just politically, it's a game of probability. So like some people think I'm going to hold my cards close and only speak when I know exactly what I'm talking about. And therefore I will gain trust because what I say will usually have merit. And people can trust that what I'm saying is going to happen. I kind of take the opposite approach as I'm going to say all the things. And 99% of the things I say, people will probably feel like they have some kind of connection to or understand me better, or, you know what I mean, feel connected because they share something similar, whether it be a belief or an experience. 1% of the time, it's probably going to piss them off. But if it does, I have that 99% track record with them, so they forgive me. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel that the community knows who I am as a person. And so when I do say something, they're like, what? They give me the benefit of the doubt. And, like I'm one of those people that had, like, everyone in our staff has my cell phone, my cell number. And so we text off, and like even parents of our students have my cell. And so I'm pretty accessible to them as well. So the combination of being accessible and also being completely open, I think just that framework makes them trust me. Because what kind of person, who's being shady would give out their cell or not say all
and it goes
things,
back to like, oh man, the parents at home, like, yo, Dr. Fast is bugging. But at the same time, like you're building up that trust and credibility and making sure that people know what's going on. You're putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and giving people your cell phone number. So that way, because, I mean, like you said, previously parents or whomever could come on campus and have a conversation. And now it's not like that. I mean, in a hybrid model, it may be similar, but you still probably have to like make an appointment and schedule a time. And it's going to be a little bit different than when you're welcoming parents and students, to walk their child to a specific class. And so I think that's super important in making sure that people know that during this, I'm here for you. And yes, I may be an administrator, I may be the principal of the school, but you have my cell, you have any means of communication necessary, and I'm going to continue to build that trust. And I'm going to continue to make sure I put myself out there. So if you have questions, you know that I'm here for you. And I think that's a complete shift in maybe it's one of those things that when we go back on campus, that's one of the things that you start thinking about is like, no matter what, like, yeah, we're back on campus. COVID is a little bit past us, but no matter what, I'm here for you. And I'm going to continue to build that trust because we developed that over the last year.
And I think it's really interesting too, because you're such a advocate and so passionate about public education. And sometimes the leaders in public education are under a microscope, right? And being watched by so many. And I guess my question, my thought, my thinking to you is, when you are so passionate about public education and you're doing all you're doing, where's that passion? What is that passion? Because I know that's where your dissertation kind of fell into and some of the thinking that you've been doing. So as you think about public education, why is that so important, and why is it so important right now?
So that's a pretty good question. Why is it important to me? Why am I so passionate? Well, I think I'm a passionate human, like as a default in general. But I also, I truly believe with my whole heart that there is no profession that has the potential to leverage our human potential as much as ours. Number one, and so I think if we care at all about the communities and the society we live in and the people we serve, then it'd be irresponsible not to be super passionate about it. And I know that people think like there's this, they don't want educators to have this kind of hero complex or to put that on them, but it is what it is. Like if not us, then who? Is my thing. So whether we should be in that position or we shouldn't is kind of irrelevant.
Storm's killing.
We are. And so therefore, what now? And I also, my husband didn't graduate high school. And he was a tag student. I have my doctorate. And so there's also this like haphazard outcome sometimes to public education that I want to lean into fixing that, righting that wrong. I've seen public education literally save lives, and I've seen people be ruined by that exact same system. And so until those two things don't happen, like I'm not going to be able to control my passion about it because it just matters.
And do you think, Amy, do you think that's one of the things that kind of like tied into the title of your book? Like it's the mission, not the mandate, right? Like it's about how do we want to develop a school? Like what is our belief system, our values? What is it that we truly believe in versus what this, I don't want to get like super political, but like versus what the state wants us to do, what superintendents want us to do. It's like, it's really defining what it is that you want your school as an administrator. What do we want our school to do? What do we want our mission and our vision to be?
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, like, so whoever said that, whatever that quote is, like the system gets like the results it's designed to get, like for me, and it's a really crappy title, by the way. I didn't title it.
No, but it makes sense. It makes sense. Like I don't mean to cut you off, but it totally makes sense. Like it's about what are you, and because you talk about the people, the stakeholders everywhere within your school, outside of you talk about school communities. So we're talking about parents, students, staff within, administrators, like, at some point, those are the kind of the people that help you develop a mission and a vision, right? Like that's what helps you define it and change it. And you have to think about those people as you're writing that, because that's the community that you're serving. So it's almost like, how do we develop a school?
I wrote it when I was a teacher, not an administrator. So I mean, that's exactly the premise though. Like, currently we have, I believe, a short-sighted mission for what schools in our country are trying to accomplish. And so based on your mission, you then create your measurements, which then influence our practices, which then, you know what I mean? Like mold our children. And so for me, it was like, okay, and we keep trying to like change our practices, but if you change your practices without looking at Like, what are we actually trying to accomplish here in the end? Goal, then you're never going to quite hit the mark in terms of realizing your vision for schools. And so for my whole thing is, and this is where people misconstrue my message. I believe academic achievement is crucial. Like, obviously we live in a world where clearly critical thinking is something
that's
we need
definitely
to
one
improve
of your metrics
in society. But but academic achievement as a sole end goal, unfortunately, it's just not super tied to like success and fulfillment in life. It's a piece of it, but it's not the whole piece. And so for me, that's where I say like, it's this merging of academic achievement and intrinsic drive and your foundational skills, or what some people refer to as soft skills, that really like, it's the intersection of those three things that should be our sweet spot or our aim as educators, which people are like, well, that's too much. I disagree. I don't think it's too much. I just think it changes then what our metrics are, and then changes what our practices are.
Well, I love that. Okay, of course. Yeah, no, I was going to say, I love that because you have to think about your student body when you develop those things. You have to think about your school site. You have to think about what is it that we as an organization are going to use as metrics, right? As measurements of success, and making sure that students are, ready as they transfer from 9th to 12th, 11th, or 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and those kinds of things. So, and thinking about like, what is it that we're going to do to reach out to the community and make sure parents are involved. I absolutely love, I couldn't like help. I was like hoping you were done, but I love that answer because I feel like it's so important in making sure that what you design, not only as an administrator, but what you design as a school site benefits your students. And that's the key piece. What am I doing as a leader, as teachers, that benefits the kids that we bring in, but then also takes in the community outside of that?
Right. And our mission, our particular mission at the high school that I work at is ignite passion, pursue purpose, rise to your worth. And that's true for anyone in our school community, educators and students alike. And you know what? When you run all your things, your systems, your practices, all the things through that lens and ask, like, is this serving this mission? It's amazing how many things you're like this is not igniting students' passion or teachers.
Yeah.
Not helping people do their purpose. No one is like growing and rising to their worth as a result of this practice. And yet we do it anyway because it's always been done, or because the state requires it, or the federal government, or whatever. Yeah.
So I was getting excited. It makes you think about everything. Like, okay, PD, like how do we, sorry.
Amy, you're doing a good job because Broc has been jumping out of his seat anytime you say something.
There's a whole lot of stuff I'm thinking about because I'm like, all this stuff makes sense as you're like building it. You're like, how am I going to develop professional developments that are meaningful, that trickle down to what aligns with our mission and vision, and how does that connect to our students? I'm sorry. That's good stuff, man.
I'm not mad at it.
I love
I'm
it.
excited.
I love it.
I think that there's a lot of people who would probably be stronger administrators than me in a lot of ways. My strength is really my ability to hold on to that why. Like, just like, it doesn't leave me, and I don't know why.
That got you excited.
But it just stays. And so like, you could probably filter every tweet I've ever tweeted, everything I've ever said as an administrator.
To your why.
PD I've ever led. And it would so tightly be congruent with that why. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the only thing that makes me successful as a professional, honestly. Like, because I have the same level of strengths and weaknesses as everyone else, but that really is the game changer, I think, when it comes to going from great to groundbreaking as a school or as a nation or whatever it is we're trying to do.
And I'm so like, and now it's my turn being all excited. I'm so excited about the why.
Thank you so much for letting me talk. I was I was like moving around in my seat. I don't normally do that.
I love the conversation around our why. And I think that's where Broc and I have stayed passionate in being leaders, is our why is fine-tuned, but it's never really changed.
It's always around the kids.
It's always around the kids. And figuring out what that is and why we do it. And then what we have to do as leaders is continuously spark that why for the people we work with. And you're on a larger lens than we are, because our staff isn't as big as yours, but to spark or re-spark that why, that's a good moment in leadership, because you're like, why are you here? Why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
After a hard day or a hard student or a hard colleague or a hard parent, did you stop and think about your why? And when you do, you say, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Or when you start to really think about your why in the beginning of your day, you go in with a whole different lens and you make a difference for kids and you make a difference for our school. And we listen to the stakeholders and hear what they have to say. And it might not agree with them, or we might, be like,
but if you're rooted to your why, if you're rooted to your why, you can't get pushed away, because everything that you do is foundational in that.
And you don't end up losing yourself and your ego. Like, I can't tell you how many building leaders or district leaders I've seen where it becomes about their own ambition or level of control or admiration or whatever it is. Like, that's where it all goes awry, I think. And, the why keeps your power in check too, because you have to answer to that.
That might be one of our
buzzwords.
Might be a buzzword this season.
No, but
ego and why.
Sorry. I mean, but like the why checks your ego. How great, like.
But it does. It holds you accountable, right? Like, the ego is the thing that gets let loose a little bit. That's the thing that gets unchecked. But the why, it grounds you back into that.
So as I hear that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I guarantee Amy's probably wrote about that already on Twitter. I'm gonna go find that tweet and repost it.
Or she's tweeting it now.
Or she's tweeting as we're speaking. How, I guess the question, and I had for you, just because I getting to know you, how did you get into that Twitter sphere of being a person in education that people are like, I'm going to wait today to see what Amy says.
Are you asking for advice?
Is it advice? Maybe, but I'm just like, wow. Anytime you write, there's like, yep, I needed that today. What got you into that realm of that Twitter sphere?
I have no idea. I don't know. So first of all, I do think, the why is it's relevant here too, right? So there are a lot of whatever people call them, like edgy celebrities or whose why is jacked up. Like, they want more followers. They want someone to sign up for their conference. They want to sell a book. You'll never see me post about that I wrote a book on Twitter. Like, that's not my end goal is literally to influence education in our country for the better. It just is. Yeah. And so I refuse to get into the smarmy, like, self-promotion stuff that people do. I don't have the time for that. You guys know, as building leaders, it's just, I don't have time.
You can't do it.
But B, it's yucky to me. Like, I just don't, I can see through that when other people do it. And so when I'm tweeting with the intent of, wow, there are like educators here where things we're talking about are resonating with them. And so I want to leverage this platform to see if we can shape education in this country, not just in my own district. And that's really my motivation when I say things. It's not like, hey, people like this, but like, I want to enter this conversation because I have something to say. And if I don't have something to say, I'm not going to tweet that night. I'm not going to like send something out just because, hey, I'm relevant still, pay attention to me. And that's, that's something that matters a lot to me. I got on Twitter initially. I didn't even know what it was, but me neither. When I had written my book, the publishing company was like, you've got to, like, part of my contract was to promote it. And then I just, like I said, that doesn't sit right with me at all. So I was like, well, if I just start writing about the things that are in the book, you know what I mean? Then maybe those ideas resonate, and then people will see that I have more to say about it, and then that'll be good enough. And so what was weird is people just started, it apparently resonated what I was saying. And what I was saying, I thought was just common sense. And I think it is. I think what I hear from people is when they read some of the things I say, it's like, I've been thinking that for X many years. I just didn't know like the words to put it into or whatever is what I hear. So I don't think it's like groundbreaking. I think maybe the phrasing I use, I don't know, just sticks with some people, and they're like, oh, that's in my gut, and now you put it in my head. And so that's what I wanted to say.
Dr. Fast, can I tell you one of my favorite tweets that is currently pinned right now from you? Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure. What if she said no?
I shouldn't have said.
I know, that'd be weird. Like,
She wouldn't
she's all
have
like,
said.
no, I don't want you.
Should I have not have asked?
It's just like very interesting. Like,
I
she
know.
would have said no. That'd be so great.
No, it's a good. That's you know what? I didn't think about that, but I read this a few times and I thought it was good. So I'm gonna read it. Is that okay?
There we go.
All right. I feel like I'm teaching English again. So one of the ones that you had tweeted is each school is a unique organism comprised of the collective struggles, history, and hopes of the community it serves. There's no sweeping fix for education, just as there's no curriculum that'll work for all students. The only fix is getting knee deep in the humanity of it all. That, I mean, like, you know, this wasn't planned. Dama just talked about like kind of how you got in the tweeting realm and stuff like that. But as we were prepping for the interview and talking with you more, I thought that tweet was really cool because it kind of like, it encompasses everything that we talked about tonight as far as like making sure that your why is foundational. It's kind of one of the things you always come back to. And it's not just about, here's the curriculum I get from the state, right? It's about making sure that you are constantly making connections with the student body that you have and the parents that are within your community and making sure that all stakeholders are involved and staying transparent. It encompasses all of those things. And so that was something that was tweeted in November, you know what I mean? Like of 2018, I think, or something like that. And that's still, I just think it's very powerful to have this conversation tonight because you haven't faltered from your beliefs. You haven't faltered from your why. And I think it reinforces the fact that if your why is strong and you believe in it, you will always come back to it. And so I wanted to read that to you, but it was very powerful in thinking about, you know, talking with you tonight.
Well, thank you. And that's another reason why I guess I publicly put out in writing or words or whatever what my why is, because it's another way to hold yourself accountable. Like I wrote the book when I was a teacher, right? And so there's so many things in there that are uncomfortable for district leaders to read. You know what I mean? And now I'm the high school principal. And so but it's almost like my manifesto that is in writing exists and it's captured in time. And if I falter from that, like I get an answer to that. And so part of just constantly communicating my beliefs is one, it holds me accountable to not selling out ever. But two, also I get to say to people like, you knew who I was, you know, for 10 years now.
Yeah.
If you're hiring for X, like I became the high school principal with no question marks around what I stood for. And that's actually comforting to me too, because I didn't have to apply under this guise of like, do you know what I mean? I'll just be morphed into whatever kind of package we're selling. And that makes me feel better too, because people know who I am when they're signing on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think for anybody listening, one of the things that anybody that's worked or talked with us, one of the things that Dominique always says, and as we get into restorative work or as you grow as an educator, is you get out a piece of paper and you write down your why. You know, why did you get into education? And it's something that I wrote down about 4 years ago. It stays in my wallet, but it was to be the person that I always needed, you know, in high school. And so I think that's one of the things that I always come back to. If I have a hard day, I pull out my wallet and I'll look at that phrase, or if I have a good day, I'll pull out my wallet and look at that phrase, because I think, as you said, it's one of the things that is the foundation. Like it kind of propels you. It's your true north as an educator, right? Your why is your true north. And that's one of the things you have to always come back to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to serve kids.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate what you said, Amy, about like, you're hiring me and you know what you're getting, right? Like we work with some kids and we're like, hey, be careful what you put on social media. Be careful what you say. Be careful what you're doing. And I guess there's a little gray area, like be real with who you are, and you don't have to hide who you are on your social media. Like there's certain things, don't post certain things, please.
100%. I was like, wait a minute, where are we going with this?
No, but I think that's really nice to be able to hear is like, no, these are my views. This is my belief. This is my passion. This is who I am. And I've never gone hide from that. And I think like, as you know, if we were going to go hire Amy, or a superintendent's going to go hire Amy, let's say like, let's look at her tweets and let's see if we can push her off her norm. Right. And she, to be able to see like, nope,
she wouldn't be pushed.
I'm not going off this route. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is exactly right. And to be like, boom, we got the person we want. I think I guess I've never really looked at it in that realm of like, this is reality. You had a 10-year interview with me via social media, and I'm going to push it even harder to lead correctly for my students, my staff, and my community. And so when I think about that and what you're doing and all the things that you're saying, what is your greatest accomplishment right now at your school? What are you most proud of at your school as you're like, people are waiting to hear what you're saying and looking at what you're saying and retweeting what you're saying. And we're excited, as you can see Broc jumping out of the seat about what you're saying.
Hey man, the camera can't see all that. Okay.
I can see it, so I'm going to tell it.
Okay.
What are you most proud of right now at your school site, Amy? What are you most excited about?
Gosh, I mean, there's so much, but I would say, like you can feel school culture. It's like when you walk into a building, you can either cut the tension with a knife, even if you haven't like run into any human yet, you can feel it. It's in the air, or you can just feel the vibe of, there's this joy in the air, or hope or whatever. I would say, we, even in this virtual setting, speaking of the why, I mean, we have just doubled down on what we care about and what we say matters for kids. And our kids are picking up on that. And we're a team. Like our students and our staff are a team, and our parents are a team in this. And some of the writing I've read from students, some of the Zooms I've had with students and staff, it's just so evident that everyone cares so deeply about each other and is willing to do this hard thing for each other right now. From our most disenfranchised students to, our AP students, from like all the mindset is just so cohesive, and the sense of belonging to a greater community is so tangible. We just gave a student survey, and the question that said, there's a staff member who knows me well, who cares about me, and whom I can trust. That actually increased. Over the last 5 years, we had the greatest percent of students respond in agreement to the statement this year. And it's because of the amazing work of our teachers. But that says something.
Yeah.
I mean, about the culture, even in this setting.
And about being transparent and trustworthy and vulnerable. I think one of the, like,
well, I gotta pause you real quick.
No, don't do it.
I'm gonna pause.
Don't pause me.
Pause you because it's a good question.
All
I think
I'll stop just for you.
As people hear that and people start to say like, "Wow, that's good information." What did you use, Amy? What tool did you create it yourself
for the survey?
The survey. Did you go through Russ Quality of Student Voice? Where were you when you?
So one of my biggest weaknesses is
Google Forms.
I hate like the plug and play program. So you'll never see our school like just taking an initiative and like sticking it here, or taking a program, a curriculum. So of course we created it ourselves about 5 years.
Google Forms.
And we use Gallup research and other research to create it, but really we're measuring students' levels of belonging, hopefulness, significance, like the things that matter, their engagement.
Yeah.
And so I've had so many people ask me for the survey, and I finally caved and sent the link, but I strongly discourage people from copying and pasting, because really the work needs to start with what matters to us, not like what matters to someone out there that created this program. And now, because you're never going to own it.
It always comes back to your school.
Yeah, you're never going to own it in the same way if you're just like, oh, your student voice is important. So says this program with this researcher. So now in September, we're going to push this thing out. And then, like we created the survey based on what our why is, which means we then put the man and woman hours into it, not only to create it in a way that works for us. And, we have doctorate degrees, we have master's, we can write statistically significant and valid and reliable surveys. We're not dummies. Like people who say that you can't do that as a school are crazy. Sorry, bad use of words, but, and then we literally go through the results as a school team, like kid by kid by kid by kid by kid, and do that knee deep in humanity work. Right. So, there's no survey we purchased, but we do have one that is reliable and that we value.
Are you going to interrupt me again?
I did hear. No, I just want to let you know I did hear Amy say she'd send us the survey.
The survey.
But don't.
If we wanted it.
I just kidding.
No, I think it was good though, because she reminded everybody that's listening, like, it goes back to your why. It goes everything that you do goes back to your why, and that why develops your vision and mission. And so the only thing I was going to say before you had asked about the survey and what, you had used, Amy, is just the fact that, like, everything that you do centers back to your why. And then the edge piece off of that is to double down, right? Like, you identify your why, you keep it in your pocket, you acknowledge what it is, and you believe in that. You double down no matter what. Somebody asks you what your why is, you're not afraid to talk about it, you're not afraid to say it, you're not afraid to believe in it. And you know what it is as a teacher, right? You know what that is. And then as you become an administrator and a leader, that why never leaves your side. And that's one of the things that drives, your school. It drives your vision and your mission and everything else that you do. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I thought that was super important.
Of course.
And as we kind of end our night tonight, Amy, and you survive your storm up there in Oregon, what is the one thing you would say to acting administrators right now, or somebody that wants to become an administrator? What's that phrase that they could write down and say, Amy Fast said this, and I'm going to live to it, or I'm just going to make me think more? What's that ending phrase, statement, or even a question you would say to active or inspiring administrators?
It's a great question.
Gosh, you're just like making me like have to come up with something profound now.
Right? You like that? This is like
we can
Twitter,
give you 30 seconds,
live
30
Twitter.
seconds of think time, but you only get 240 characters.
I would just say, like, stop trying to be the administrator who does the things. Like,
boom.
You know what I mean? Like,
done.
My bad.
As soon as you're trying so hard to do the right thing, you're losing the authentic thing. And so, you were hired for a reason. You have a skill set or a mindset or a combination that makes people want to follow your lead. And so don't question that. In fact, like you said, double down. In a time like this, double down on whatever that skill set is, instead of trying to do the thing that is needed in a pandemic. Like, my skill set is my why, my ability to communicate in a way that moves people. That's my double down. Yours might be something else, but lean into that instead of trying so hard to do the administrator thing right now.
I love the double down phrase. I think the title of this episode is just going to be like, I'll be your Huckleberry. Right? It's Tombstone. We're talking about poker, like cards, doubling down cards.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
I'm not wrapping up the conversation. I'm just, while I have the idea in my brain.
I'm glad whatever was there, you said out loud. So I don't mind it.
Or you just be like Val Kilmer.
Or you just say, what's your why or something like that. But anyways.
What's your why?
Yeah.
That's boring.
Anyways, Amy, it was a pleasure. As you know, we sit here, we have a beer, and our attic isn't an attic. It's just us.
It's a room.
Hanging out, shooting the crap, having conversations, and figuring out what's next for education. And we're lucky to be able to partner with you today, partner with you hopefully in the future. And when all of this is over, Broc and I are taking a flight up because we can't wait to see your school. And we can't wait to walk the campus with you one day, if that invitation is there.
Well, yeah, and we're super happy that you're the first person to have something to drink.
Right. I wouldn't let you down.
Right. So cheers to you. Thank you so much. It was
Cheers.
A pleasure, a wonderful conversation, and we will see you on Twitter as we try to gain our... No, actually, we're not even trying to game.
No,
I
need to be taught how to use...
Twitter's nothing. It's just telling how you feel. I learned that tonight.
Okay, I got it.
All righty.
Thank you,
Thank you, Amy.
Bye.
Bye.